Right, or just, thank you.
I want to file an early protest. Wayne's not wearing his shirt. While I'm working, you're not wearing your shirt. What's going on?
I actually don't have it yet. I haven't seen my man, Mr. Meals. Yeah, sorry about that. I'll get it from him. I haven't scheduled anything yet.
Oh yeah,
But thanks.
before he wears it out on his own, you know.
Yeah, I think
Good news
he's
is he
holding it
won't break
hostage.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, great Ken.
You're muted, Ken.
I said, how's everybody doing today? Good to see y'all.
Doing great.
Good, thanks, Ken.
And David, did I see David Cannon jump on?
Yep.
I'm here.
Perfect. Oh, and Trevor too. Wonderful. I invited Trevor Sperry to join us. He is Vice Chair in Region 3. So
Thanks for having me.
you bet. So it's 9:01 and I'm going to go ahead and start. I sent you all out an agenda and then I sent you a corrected agenda. So welcome to our Utah VOAD executive leadership meeting. And we hold these on the first, I was going to say second, no, on the first Thursday of the month at 9 a.m. And thank you, Wayne, for setting up the Zoom meeting for us. And thank you, Captain Rob, for letting us use the Salvation Army Zoom account. And hi, James. I see James Ray just jumped on. And just maybe we'll start with a quick introduction for those folks who don't know everybody. Gina, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, my name's Gina Newby and I work with Aaron Titus in crisis cleanup.
And Aaron couldn't be here today, so
Yes,
Gina
he
is
sends, yes, he sends us apologies.
Gina is joining us from Missouri, so that's
Oh, yeah.
so Zoom is awesome.
Yeah.
Bill, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I think I know all the smiling faces on here, including Gina from long time working with her. Bill Talbert, the chair for Region 1 VOAD in Utah.
Great, and Sheila? You're muted, Sheila.
I've got kids in the house, so I'm back and forth. I'm Sheila Atwood. I am secretary for this group, and I'm with the Church of Scientology.
Great, and Wayne?
Morning, I'm Wayne Robbins. I'm with Team Rubicon. I'm currently a client fellow and vice president of technology.
Nice. Ken?
Ken Crowdy with the Utah Division of Emergency Management. I'm the state VAL, the Voluntary Agency Liaison, and happy to be a part of the group here.
Nice, and David?
I'm Dave Cannon. I'm with Salt Lake Valley Habitat for Humanity, and I'm the VOAD treasurer.
Awesome, and Trevor?
Hey everyone, I'm Trevor Sperry, Emergency Manager for Spanish Fork City and Vice Chair of Region 3. Rather new to the VOAD organization, so I'm really excited to be involved with each of you.
Awesome, welcome. And James?
Good morning, everybody. James Ray, Utah Division of Emergency Management.
Okay, great. I will start at the top of, and I'm assuming that Carrie, I believe, is with the Utah One Summit down in Cedar City, and so yeah, we'll just go ahead and jump in. And so the first item on our agenda was a quote that I took from Richard Linford. Oh, there's Carrie. Are you there, Carrie?
Yes. Sorry.
Oh, you're
sorry.
You're back home. I thought you were down in Cedar City.
I got back late last night, so I've been gone for 3 weeks to conferences, and so I
unfortunately forgot that last night to take my laptop out of my suitcase. So when I came to get on the meeting, I went, oh, I have to find it.
Everybody just introduce themselves. Carrie, would you quickly introduce yourself?
Yes, I thought I knew everyone, but Carrie Malkovich, Vice President of Public Relations for VOAD. I serve on the City Council for the City of Woodland Hills. I'm also Emergency Manager in that position, and I represent Latter-day Saint Charities on the VOAD at the VOAD table for Region 3. And I also serve as Region 3 Secretary. Trevor and I are trying to figure out, well, I'm trying to convince him to be chair, and he's trying to convince me to find someone else. So
And we're gonna talk about that later. And Carrie, you probably don't know Gina, who is filling in for Erin Titus with Crisis Cleanup, and she lives in Missouri.
oh, wonderful. Welcome to the group, Gina.
There's a long lost friend, Mr. Ed Blake. You're muted, Ed. You're muted.
Some reason my iPad did not like that link. Sorry for being late.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us. We just introduced everybody, and this is Ed Blake. He is former chair of state VOAD, and Carrie Malkovich from Region 3. I think you know James and Ken. Trevor Sperry is vice chair from Region 3. Of course, you know David. Wayne Robbins is with Team Rubicon. He's my VP of IT. Sheila is our fearless secretary. She's with Church of Scientology. Bill Tolbert is chair of Region 1. And Gina Atwood is with Crisis Cleanup, filling in for Erin Titus. And so I think that's everybody. And oh, look, here's Rhonda. Hey, Rhonda, do you want to introduce, Ed, do you want to introduce yourself, Ed, or?
Yeah, I think you did a great job, actually. No, I'm just Ed Blake with Habitat for Humanity, and I'm the second past president of the state of VOAD.
And you're not just Ed Blake, you're like the Ed Blake. Hey, Rhonda, would you introduce yourself?
Good morning. I'm Rhonda Uber. I work at the Episcopal Diocese of Utah, and I am Region 2 chair.
Okay, awesome. And the only person you might not know, Rhonda, is Gina. She's with Crisis Cleanup from Missouri, filling in for Erin Titus today. And Trevor Sperry is with Region 3. So I don't know if you two have met or not. So I think everybody else knows everybody. So I don't know. I think I neglected to send you an agenda, Ed. I don't know if you got one or not, but I'm just going to read off of this. This is a quote from Richard Linford from our last. We had a state meeting at the state DMC. Compliments of Ken Crowdy lined that up for us. And we were having a conversation about operational VOAD, and Richard Linford sort of sent us a sort of a summary of just exactly what Utah VOAD is. The question was with the state EOC and whatnot. So I'm just going to read Richard's quote that I compiled here. Utah VOAD is a 501c3 organization of voluntary, independent voting, dues-paying board member organizations, and is not directed by the Utah State EOC. State VOAD participates in the Utah State EOC by invitation and is non-voting in that part. Utah VOAD resources and responses are primarily mass care related, although there is an overlap with a number of desks, referring to the desks at the EOC. ESF 6, which is mass care, 8, which is health, 11, which is ag and food, and 14, which is long-term recovery. The Utah VOAD representative to the state government EOC is the state Utah VOAD president, with the state vice president attending should the president be unavailable. And that's the email that, and this is Joeva. Can I take this really quick to see if she's like trying to jump on? Hang on 1 second. Talk amongst yourselves.
I want to take a moment to preach the virtues of Gina to you guys. She used to be a church preparedness leader in Montana and learned how to swim upstream because she had a lot of folks that A, didn't understand, or B, didn't care, and she was always punching and kept punching and did a great job of helping to get her area prepared, and went to work for Aaron Titus when she moved to Missouri. And I talked to Aaron last week, and he was telling me that he'd be dead meat without her, because he talks to you multiple times per day. You jump in, you have great initiative, hard worker. And so I just wanted to fill you in a little bit on that smiling face you see on the screen.
You're funny. Thanks. Thanks, Bill. Bill's a great friend of mine.
Awesome. Thank you. So Joeva was actually calling about another matter. She wasn't trying to get onto our meetings, but so I'm going to call her back. So anyway, after reading that paragraph, and we've had discussions, and I know we've got Ken and James on here, and I know currently they have VOAD sitting at the VDCT table at the state EOC. And I did send all of you the state EOP that was newly out with Governor Cox being the new governor had to sign that. And in Appendix D, I'm recommending that the Utah State EOP Appendix D change the verbiage from up to may from will, because how they have the verbiage in there is, VOAD's will. And it's kind of my understanding, after talking to Richard and talking to Brooks McRoberts, that because we are a 501c independent organization, the state EOC may ask us to help with volunteer donation management, but that will anyway, just and then I've got on here on the agenda. Bill just went through an exercise with FEMA Region 8 and Cache Valley, and he's also was very involved in Colorado. So I was going to ask him, what did you find worked? Because and we've got Ed Blake, second past chair here. It's kind of my understanding that the volunteer donation, that's not really our wheelhouse. We may help, but that's not necessarily our VOAD wheelhouse. So Ed, do you want to comment, jump in here?
I got put on mute while you were speaking. I would agree with that, because may is a better word in that contract, because we may participate. We don't have to participate, nor do they have to have us participate. So may is more proper. We want to make sure that we're keeping for the organizations the contractual containment loose, so that VOADs they're going to elect to come into any type of disaster. So I agree with you.
Okay, thank you. And I see James Ray has his hand raised. James?
I just wanted to make a comment on Richard Linford's comment on mass care relation. I don't know if right now is a good time to say about it.
I think this would be appropriate since we're discussing this right now.
Okay. I do hold a different opinion, being involved with VOAD for a number of years. I do not believe that mass care is the primary function of VOAD. And to show that, if I can show my screen, oh, host is disabled from screen sharing. If you look at the VOAD services matrix, the mass care component of everything that VOAD does is a small portion of everything that VOAD does. Yes, I think it's more appropriate to suggest that in terms of what VOAD does at the State Emergency Operations Center, they have more of a floating type role. They participate at the VDCT desk as appropriate. They participate at the mass care desk as appropriate, but they also participate at other ESFs as appropriate. But in terms of historical context, as well as VOAD's, one of VOAD's greatest roles, this is my opinion, is VOAD mostly deals in terms with people or a workforce component and things, getting in-kind materials to the places that are needed. And because of that perspective, that's the reason why Sheila Curtis and other decision makers in the state EOC suggested putting the VDCT desk, or the volunteer and donation coordination desk, as the primary place for VOAD to be, even though they do understand that VOAD has other roles in the EOC, but just as a primary desk, having it there. So if you look at the VOAD matrix, you do see that mass care is a small portion of all of the things that we do with VOAD.
Thank you, James. Thank you, James. And while I do agree that we do get bodies and things, those are all tied to our specific organizations, where they stay, retain their own autonomy and independence. And after I read the appendix and the state EOP, the way I felt that the state has placed VOAD is more on the voluntary donation management, which is really not our wheelhouse. That's just kind of my feelings. And I'll go back to Ed, since you sat in the EOC in the time that you were there as well.
I think I think VOAD does a lot more than what VDCT does, and I would agree with that statement. I feel sometimes like management in the EOC is pushing for Mass Care 6 to be only a Red Cross table, and Red Cross needs our help as well there. And so I guess I would maybe not agree totally with you on the idea that we would fall under VDCT.
And that's my concern, James and Ken, is that by putting us in the primary VDC table, I think that really limits, and particularly being on, and Mike Moon is the lead, and if that was my understanding last time I was there at the EOC on an exercise, that if a request comes in to the web EOC, it goes to Mike Moon, and then he'll call me as president of VOAD. And I just don't think that's a very good system. That's just my opinion. Do you have a comment, Bill? Oh yeah, I was going to let Bill go ahead and talk about your exercise you just had.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we had a major FEMA earthquake exercise here a few weeks ago, 6.6 or 7, whatever it was. The earthquake hits Cache Valley, and all of the emergency management entities and responding organizations were involved in that 4-hour exercise. And I'll talk a little bit about how that fits into what I'm going to share with you. But having been down this road for a long time, I go back to the mothership documents, FEMA's National Response Framework. And if you look at that document, which came out in the, I think, 2011 or 2012 timeframe, it blocks out exactly how FEMA operates, how it helps the states, and how VOAD fits into that. And I'm going to read you from the Volunteer and Donation Management's annex to that national plan. It says, this annex provides guidance on the federal role in supporting state governments in the management of masses of unaffiliated volunteers and unsolicited donated goods. Any reference to volunteer services and donated goods in this annex refers to unaffiliated volunteer services and unsolicited goods unless otherwise stated. That's it in a nutshell. VOAD is a major player in an EOC during an emergency for a broad scope of things, many of which fall into the mass care category. And I wouldn't just use the spreadsheet that we have at the state of Utah as emblematic of what all the voluntary agencies can bring to a response. And my experience working in the EOC at the state level in Colorado was that we were tied at the hip with the Red Cross at the ESF 6 desk because when the bombs are going off at the beginning stages of that disaster curve, the Red Cross has specific things that it works to do to establish shelters and coordinate the opening of shelters and staffing of shelters, while at the same time many other requirements are coming in for evacuations, transportation, feeding, watering, and all the other things that are there. Emergency medical, mobile facilities, all that kind of stuff. And the last thing I can tell you, having been in a couple of major disasters in that ESF desk, the last thing I want to be dealing with is an RV convoy that shows up with a bunch of well-meaning people in shower thongs and shorts saying, we're here to help. And being distracted about how to do that, because my goal was to bring the resources of state VOAD and national VOAD to bear on all the major things that are happening in that disaster. And the structure laid out in the FEMA design framework says that there will be VOADs identified to handle donations management and volunteer management. And that's the way it worked in Colorado. We had designated ACSDR, had a written memorandum of agreement with them to do the function of donations management, both monetary and stuff. And they knew exactly how to jump into action. Kathy, can't think of her name right now, the ACSDR gal was just extraordinary. One phone call to her, and that activated the whole donation management scheme, the setting up of donation centers, the putting in of comms, the getting of volunteers to sift and sort donations and prepare them for reissuing to needy families that came in. And the other arm of that, which is the volunteer management, was given to Metro Volunteers, which was a 501c3 in Denver that was organizing volunteerism in the Denver metropolitan area. And anybody that showed up at a checkpoint in an RV with shower thongs and a good heart were shipped to them or referred to them, and they then managed getting them aligned with Team Rubicon, Salvation Army, Red Cross, whoever it happened to be, making sure that they were properly vetted, making sure that they were trained with the basics of what they needed to know, and if they needed any PPE, that they got that. And that was a full-time job for those two VOADs to accomplish while we were doing the big chessboard moving of the other VOAD pieces in the system. So as I think James mentioned, that we do float in when you get to equilibrium in the emergency, we're floating, like many people do through the room, the EOC. But in that first startup phase, we're tied at the hip with the Red Cross. And in fact, there were times where, because of my relationship with the Red Cross, if the Red Cross guy didn't show up or didn't connect, I moved into the Red Cross seat because I knew their mission, role, the people, and what was required. And then my vice chair moved into the seat that I had. So I just want to, James's logic was almost flawless, that every voluntary organization is bringing stuff or people. So it's donations and volunteers, but one is organized, equipped and vetted mass workforce, and the others are the good-hearted SUVs who many times volunteer without a clue what it is they need to do, how to do it, how to align with anybody else. And frankly, the other thing we don't talk about much on volunteer management is you get fake firemen with boots collecting money at the intersections, and you get fake contractors going in saying, oh, we'll patch the roof by close of business today, just write me $1,000 check. And we have groups that go in to muck a house out and take grandma's favorite jewelry on the way out the door. So there's a management of the unaffiliated volunteers component that is critically important in a big event. And you can't have that focus and that workload on top of what you do at the ESF 6 desk to bring all the resources in. We'll also share with you that I went through, I think, 3 valves in my 8 years working with the state and others in Colorado. And 2 of those were like Ken, absolutely golden, worth their weight in gold. Ken's approach to life is, I'm here to help you. What can I do to help you? And we need help. What can you do to help us? And that's that interface, the magic that goes on in that interface. We had a short period of time with another individual that was brought in to Division of Emergency Management, who had that philosophy of the will tell, not will ask. And the first meeting we had with that person, she said, well, I'm assigning these houses to the LDS church. I want them done by Friday. I'm assigning these clean out of these 4 businesses to Team Rubicon. I want them done by Tuesday. And I had to put my hand and say, hold the phone. You know, you got something out of sync here. We are in charge of our own resources. We know what they are. And I'm speaking for every VOAD. We know what we can afford, what we can't afford, if we can transport, can't transport, if our people are trained and able to stay safe or not. And we will decide what we can do to help. And that's the virtue of crisis cleanup, because it maps a battlefield, and then the individual VOADs can come in and say, I've got enough volunteers to handle 4 muckouts, or I've got a team coming in that can handle sifting through the ashes with 10 families. And they will claim those, register them, and update them so you know status and number of hours served and all those kinds of things. So it's 2 totally different roles and missions, the unsolicited and the mass organized teamwork part of it. And you don't want to blur those 2, because then you'll get failure for sure in one or both areas. And that's my speech. And I refer everybody back to that great national response framework, which, by the way, lists VOAD as a cooperating agency. And cooperation has that same, what can you do to help us, versus here's your assignment for the day. So it's just that balance in the heat of battle that you want to sort that out in advance, because it makes it a lot easier to go without fistfights in the EOC when the tensions get high.
Thank you. And I see James has his hand raised again. And then when you're done, James, I wanted to ask you, Ken, or James, that's kind of my impression, is that you have Charlene Sargent, who's with Adventist Day, who is that donation wheelhouse. And I know she lives in California, and I've talked to her on the phone, and she said, you know, however long it takes for her to get here from California, but that's kind of my impression that's the state is using her specifically for that. So James, if you want to go ahead, and then Ken, if you want to chime in on Charlene.
Yeah, and thank you, Bill, for that reference to the national plans as well. I do remember just some historical context here as well. Back when Tracy Bodley was with USERV Utah, before she came on board with the Division of Emergency Management, and Susan Thomas at the time was over VDCT, or the state's side of working with Tracy Bodley on that as well. We were having lots of discussions about that. And one of the big discussions was, yes, VDCT does deal with the spontaneous unaffiliated, but then in terms of documentation purposes, where are we putting the information for the affiliated organized efforts? So our effort, you know, is to try to point everybody to become affiliated or to connect with an existing organization. And in the midst of those discussions, they were saying that it seems more appropriate to have any of those types of activities still lined in with the VDCT desk, so that even not just a spontaneous unaffiliated component, but also the affiliated organized efforts. And USERV Utah was saying that this actually lines up with their things, because all of their volunteers are affiliated, and they're not going to use volunteers that are unaffiliated, except for by provision of putting people through a volunteer coordination center or a volunteer reception center, which many of the VOAD entities may have a big part in helping to run and operate some of those centers, to get people affiliated with organizations doing jobs, or to also get people to connect with and sign up with specific agencies so that they become affiliated with those. So that's just a little bit of background. There was Carrie Beardall as well when she was working on the SOGs. She was the secretary for Utah VOAD. And then Greg Bates, who was later on instated as the USERV Utah individual. And in the plans there, if you look at the plans with the VDCT SOG, the Standard Operating Guide, it was very clear that they were not going to be commanding VOAD to do anything. Even in the ESF 6 mass care component, there's no command or control. It is a, hey, here's a partnership. You guys maintain your own autonomy, but in terms of internal organization, so that there's at least a leader identified, the idea was that that person would then connect with you as VOAD and then ask you for support in those various activities. But the confusion would come in is if there are personnel resources or donated resources or conversations when it comes to undesignated funds, that the records of that be recorded in the VDCT desk so that people aren't looking for it everywhere. There's at least that central location for that kind of information to go. And then obviously there's still a role with the Red Cross side, with the mass care side, with ESF 11, with food and water side of things as well. But your comment, Lisa, about changing the words from will to may, absolutely appropriate. I think all of the aspects within the Emergency Operations Center are not trying to assume that they will command or control in any form or function, but instead, as a partner with your own autonomy, in turn is fully respected. And But in terms of trying to figure out where information should go and information should be recorded, because WebEOC and the State Emergency Operations Center, WebEOC is primarily a records tracking tool. The effort is not necessarily to just define somebody into a corner, but to try to help information land in the right spot so that people can know where it is, and that missions and activities can be properly associated with the various tasks and functions. So that's just a perspective to put into play there, Bill. Just as I started, yes, national VDCT is only focused on spontaneous unaffiliated. But here in the state of Utah, there's been substantial discussions with combining the two efforts. Otherwise, there is no emergency support function. There is no other desk that would take the missions related to affiliated volunteers and what the activities are associated with those. Anyways, that's it.
Thank you. I will note that in Colorado, it was ESF 6C. They broke ESF 6 into 3 pieces so that they had not just one body, they had 3 people that were working different segments of that. And that's why it resided there. The other thing is I want to give you a military analogy. If you were involved in a war, which we are when we're fighting Mother Nature or man-made disasters, there's a difference between the role of recruitment and battlefield deployment. And you have to recruit, vet, train, and prepare, and then you hand them the weapon to go into the battle. And those two have whole different metabolisms, different pulse rates, different challenges. And that's kind of how I look at DVCT versus mass care. You want to be able to have an entity, a group that can do that. Going back to Charlene, I raised my hand when I first got to Utah about Charlene Sargent, because I talked to her on the phone. And I said, who is it where's your belly button in Utah that if we need to activate immediately a donations management activity, how do we do that? Well, she doesn't have anybody in Utah with her response. Well, haven't you trained people that are ready to go in there and start things up, that know where the vacant buildings are, who the leasing agents are, who the Comcast portable cell phone tower people are, et cetera? And she said, no, she handles it all from San Diego. And when I said, well, if we have a major event that precludes being able to do interstate travel, how's that going to execute? And she didn't have an answer. So I have waved my hand a couple times in meetings with Ken and others saying, I'm uncomfortable with donations management executing itself in an earthquake environment, say, or something else in Utah with that structure versus the structure that I've seen in Wyoming, Montana, Utah, Colorado and other places. And then donations management, you serve as an unusual entity. I've talked to Mike Moon a couple of times, and you make it sound as if you've developed your own quasi VOAD that is vetted, trained volunteers. And if that's not the case, then you're reaching out to get volunteers, which is what the VOADs generally do. So I'm still not quite sure how that, I'm not familiar with how that matrix with USERV functions totally. So I'll just put that up there as well.
Do you want to comment on that, Ken, on USERV?
Hey, listen, thank you, Bill and James, for your comments. And I definitely agree changing the name or changing the wording from Will to May would be excellent. To me, the subject is certainly important, but the VDCT desk and the ESF 6 desk are right there together. It almost doesn't make any difference. I certainly want to establish that in your minds, but the communication is right there between VDCT and ESF6. The people are just almost together, and you can almost call it one desk, perhaps. So you need to decide, and also get Sheila Curtis involved as the operations chief, because she's in charge of how the ESFs are situated and so forth. So with Charlene Sargent, I had a meeting with her yesterday, as a matter of fact, with Mike Moon. Mike is the lead for BDCT, and he's excellent, does a good job with that. And Charlene and we have to evolve. There's certainly some weaknesses we have. And Bill, I think, has pointed out some challenges that we face, but Charlene is certainly a major player with us. So that's all I have to say. And again, I think you decide what's most comfortable for VOAD. Get with Curtis and work together on that and be comfortable. That's all I have to say. Oh, and I need to leave soon, so if I have to drop off, you'll know that I'm in another meeting.
All right. Thank you, Ken. And yeah, the VDCT has a quarterly meeting, and I found out about it 5 minutes before the meeting yesterday. So Ken, will you make sure? Apparently Joeva and Rich Linford were on the list, but I was not. So that's the first that I have heard of this.
I informed Mike yesterday. I saw the list. I didn't see the list before. I assumed you would be there, and Mike apologizes and said you'll make sure that you're on the next list. The next meeting isn't until January, but
Gotcha.
Anyway.
All right, thank you. And then James, James and Ken, how do we go about getting that language changed in the annex and in the state EOP?
Let me take that ball and run with it. Okay. And
yeah, and I don't think it's just the annex. I mean, the annex is where they were specifically talking about the VDC TC table, but other parts of the EOP had VOADs mentioned. So I would change that language anywhere.
If you could send the language, how you want it to be, as an email to me. There's a committee, and I'm on the planning committee that reviews all the plans for the state, and we can take it from there. So just tell me exactly, where that paragraph is, the page number, and so forth, and how you want it changed, and I'll take it from there.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And then Wayne, the next item is, you had talked about that Team Rubicon uses FEMA forms. We had also talked about this as volunteers. I know the state wants to have the volunteer hours recorded, and each of our VOADs retains and keeps track of their own volunteer hours. And Wayne, you said that Team Rubicon uses a specific FEMA form. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I could go off on the incident command system for FEMA for hours. So I'm gonna make this really brief, and then anybody else that's been lucky enough to go through all those courses, the ICS courses, will be very familiar with this. So let me just quickly share one of my screens, and I'll make this fast because, like I said, it could take hours. So can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, so this is just a generic form that we use as part of the National Incident Management System and the Incident Command System, which is part of, I know this is a lot of wording, but there's an incident action plan within the Incident Command System when you go through that training, and you can, inside the incident action plan, each and every day, there's an incident check-in and check-out list. So as you can see on here, this is just an example. The ones that we would actually turn in will be signed by everybody that has worked for that day, which is required by FEMA. So as you can see on this one, everybody has filled it out themselves, signed it, put the exact hours. Well, the reason why I did this one is very simply because you can tell the difference between a general responder and a command general staff individual, because the FEMA rate, the hourly rate is different. And on the bottom here, you can see that I've written the number of general responder hours and the number of command general staff hours. And that's important because when we get into actually giving this to our local partners, say we're talking about the windstorm, we worked in, Bountiful, Ogden, Salt Lake, Sandy, worked all over the place. So we wanted to be able to give them an accurate list of exactly how many hours our volunteers worked. And we'll actually break it down for them with this form as well. So you can see that we've taken the general responder hours, there's an hourly rate, and there's a cost table here, comes straight from the FEMA website. So this is the hourly rate for our different volunteers. Then this is the equipment rental rates here, which is on a separate form, but the way that we actually report it is with this form or through just simply giving them direct access to our daily sign-ins here, so that any local partner will know exactly how many hours we worked and exactly what the job was, so that they can get the correct hourly rate when they submit it to FEMA. So with that, basically, you can do the same thing with this form, with this part of the IC 218, also part of the instant action plan. This is basically just our vehicles or equipment, and you can see the FEMA code is written for every single one of these. And the reason why that's important is because FEMA lists every single item as a cost code. As you can see here, we add those there so that it's simpler for our partners to come up with exactly what we use, hourly rates for everything we use, so they can get FEMA reimbursement. And again, it comes on a form that we use with Excel or within the action plan. And I'm going to stop there because, like I said, I could go off on this for hours, but the easiest way for us to basically use the same as to put a different logo on the top here. That's that simple. I've done it for us as Utah VOAD. I've already made one, and anybody can use these forms. So that's an extremely general over the way tops presentation on this. But that's if there are any questions, let me know. But this could go for hours.
Thank you so much, Wayne. So you could change that Team Rubicon to a Utah VOAD icon, and could we put this on our website so that all of our partners have access to it?
Absolutely, yeah. And I've already done it somewhere. I've got one made up for us that has our.
Awesome.
Yeah, they're real easy. Yep.
Okay, I'm going to go to Ed Blake, has his hand raised.
You know, one thing in this discussion today is, and I'm concerned about, is every time I get something that we need to do as Habitat, it doesn't fit well in a silo of the EOC. And I think we need to be careful that we don't silo too many of the responsibilities. We distributed 20,000 masks during the pandemic from our restore that came directly from FEMA. Doesn't fit perfectly into VDCT and probably fits better in mass care. We're long-term recovery. That's what Habitat does. That doesn't fit well into VDCT. And I'm not saying we need to be separate. I'm just saying that a lot of the things that we do, like managing, for instance, the 47 mobile homes that we put back up on piers in West Valley City, I don't want to get so in, I don't want to be put in a silo. I want to be able to have clear communication channels where we need them. And so I think we just need to be vigilant to make sure that we are not inhibiting what we need to get done by putting ourselves into specific silos. That's my comment.
Thank you, Ed. Terry, do you have a question?
Yes, I wanted to ask Wayne. I talked with a lot of mayors and county commissioners this last 2 weeks, and one of the issues that kept coming up was tracking the hours, because a lot of volunteers show up. We have our volunteers, then there are those organic volunteers that show up, and it's difficult. So I was wondering, is there a way to have maybe a QR code or something that would link everyone to these forms, because people will have their phones there. They might not have the papers printed in a disaster, but everybody would have their phones, where you could just print out the QR code. You come on site, you go in, you type your name in, whichever entity you are, and then be able to just have it right there for tracking purposes. I think that we don't want to spoon feed everybody, but if there's a way to make it really convenient, I think it would help local officials as well as those of us representing voluntary organizations. I don't know, it's just a thought.
Is that
Yeah,
dual?
absolutely. Yeah, that's just that form specifically, the ICS 211, the one that FEMA wants us to use, has to be signed by everybody individually. So that's what makes it difficult. And you need an organization that is handling spontaneous volunteers for that reason, so that they can have everybody sign in and out, and give their information. And if there was an opportunity to have a QR code, have someone, open a document, then they'd have to print it, and then everybody have to physically sign the one that is submitted. So it is a lot better to have someone from the city or from a local partner there with a physical copy to have everybody sign if possible. But I love the idea that you mentioned there, to have it available if not.
So what is the reason to have the physical signature? I mean, they don't go back and verify the signature. That's what I mean, as someone who has collected a lot of signatures over the years, I don't even think FEMA looked at it really. They just kind of said, oh, here's some signatures. Looks like you got your number. They don't verify those. So what is really the purpose of having someone physically sign? Is it something that we might bring up on a federal level and say, can we jump into this century and have people log on? I mean, that's tracked.
Yeah, I'm sure that there is a provision there, and it's an internal rule for Team Rubicon, as well as from what I understand, there's some legal requirements. But I won't get too crazy into that. But I'm sure that, especially when you've signed an agreement with FEMA that requires in-kind donations or something different than a disaster being declared, I know that there's different rules that go along there too. But yeah, and I can look more into that as well, as far as the legalities of it. But yeah, it's an excellent idea to have people with the ability to use a device to sign in and out of a spontaneous volunteer act within a city, so that can be recorded and eventually submitted to FEMA that way to get reimbursed.
All right, I'm going to check into it too with a few people.
Great.
Because it seems like that's one of the biggest hassles is you're all on site, you have everything going on, people showing up, and yet then they say, where's your signatures?
Yeah.
And that's really kind of the last thing on your mind. And yet if you had a code that everybody just said, go on, sign in, check in, everybody would do that.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Okay,
I don't know.
Bill, do you have a comment?
I was going to ask about Volunteers of America. I know they're active in Cache County. Are they one of our members in state VOAD? Because VOA was great at being able to handle a lot of that SUV spontaneous volunteers during emergencies. That was kind of one of their sweet spots. I just thought I'd mention that.
Do they fall under UServe, Ken? Do you know, Volunteers of America?
I would imagine, but I don't know for sure. I saw Volunteers of America and I was wondering the same thing, but I don't know. Mike would know.
Okay.
It'd be good to get them involved if you can.
Yeah. James, do you have a comment?
Yeah. And Carrie, this is a great conversation to have with Mike Moon, because to get something like that set up for, a statewide use would be really great. And I know Mike Moon is trying to create plans on how to actually capture the volunteer hours and things like that, and make it easier for entities to be able to help manage. So this would be a great conversation with VDCT. And to Ed's point as well, I fully agree with Ed. I do not believe we should pigeonhole ourselves into a particular thing. Yes, there are different functions that don't fit in a specific ESF. Yeah, so just from a purely records management standpoint, there there is certain information that needs to go in certain places. Mass care related activities need to go into the mass care ESF. Activities that deal with volunteer hours, coordinating volunteers, managing volunteers, receiving and distribution of donations and things like that. The suggestion is to have that information go into the VDCT desk and not necessarily into the mass care desk. But your guys' recommendation is absolutely would be listened to. And so just some historical document, and I can share this with you if you're seeing my screen.
Yes.
This was a draw up of a systems analysis between VDCT, ESF8, the various entities. Again, it's just a location where information is then kind of funneled through. You'll see VOAD, the private sector, Citizen Corps, as well as YouServe Utah, and the various kind of forms and functions that they do. Citizen Corps, for example, would be called upon to help mobilize CERT teams. The private sector would be called upon to help mobilize volunteers from their private sectors. VOAD would be called upon to help mobilize donations or volunteers. Like, for instance, Ed was saying, hey, they donated a whole bunch of masks. Well, that would be a donations component. And then in terms of a state record, it would just say, hey, this organization donated these masks. Boom, here. That's all that's needed there. Anyways, but this entire thing, and I won't go through it per se, but I can share this with you. It was an entire systems analysis of all of the various partners and what each does, and kind of their role between various things. You'll see ESF6 and ESF8 and how there's kind of a coordination effort there as well. The various processes and whatnot. So just to help give some light to reasons, thought processes, understanding of various things so that we can understand why certain decisions are made the way they are.
And James, Carrie put in the chat, could you share these slides with this group?
Yep, I'll try to send it in an email or put it in the chat here. I'll put a link in and send it in an email as well.
Yeah, I would prefer email because I know things get lost in the chat. So I appreciate that. And thank you. Ken had to leave, and thank you, James. And this discussion took a little longer than I anticipated. So I will quickly try and go through the next items on here. The second one I had was Afghan refugees. And many of you heard that possibly we're getting 675 refugees here in Utah. The International Rescue Committee, and that's Natalie L. Daree, and Catholic Community Services, Aiden Batar. They're the two lead services. And Captain Rob and I were on a meeting a couple of weeks ago with these agencies. And so VOADs are kind of on standby. If there's a gap or a need, they will call Captain Rob or myself. So just so you know that. The next item, number 3, was David Cannon, our treasurer. Did you receive our check from the department, the Utah Bureau of EMS, the State Health Department? Did you receive our $3,000 check? Did you get that?
Yes, I did. I got the 3,000.
Awesome.
And then I've been creating invoices. I'll try and send those out next week. I'm trying to shorten the process, make it a little bit easier so that they're faster next time.
Gotcha. And just the request that we had from the Utah Bureau of EMS was that in this next year, by June of 2022, we just send them a one-page report of how these funds have helped our goals, objectives, and outreach to our community. They wanted us to specifically maybe mention COVID-19. So if we can just be thinking of that as we're, using our funds and moving forward. But I did send a bunch of requests to many of the state agencies, and they were the one that responded. And I don't know if this was COVID funds or whatnot, but hey, we got some funds, so that's awesome. And then David, on the invoices, do you think it's worth putting on the dates and the fees so that cities, counties, states, partners can anticipate budgeting for that? Do you think there's a worth in putting that on there or not? What the fee will be?
So the future fees that you have on there,
Yeah.
I can do that.
What's everyone's opinion on that? Would that be helpful to have 2021 $100, 2022 $150, 2023 $200? Is that helpful to know
Yes,
in planning for future?
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll revise the invoices I've got and put that on all of them.
Awesome. And I know we had talked in prior meetings, it's kind of like when we're sending this out, it's kind of like return on investment. When cities, counties, and state partners are looking at this and like, well, why should we pay to have someone go be a member of VOAD? But again, that's what we're going to try and do with our educational outreach. Okay, number 4, Wayne Robbins. Wayne was awesome and got our What's Up channel up and running. And I think everybody here are on that. And Wayne got our Google Voice number up and running. And also, we're going to have Carrie report in a minute, but Carrie was at the Utah League of Cities and Towns. And I don't know if Carrie and Wayne connected, but Wayne was able to get some business cards up. So that's what I'm putting out to all of you. If you want some business cards, if you can let Wayne know, and then he could have them all done in one batch, because it's probably, well, it is less money when you order more cards. Were you and Wayne able to connect, Carrie?
Yes, Wayne was able to drop them off at the hotel I was staying at, and I was able to receive them. The only thing, Wayne, that I would say was add that Google number on the card, because it just had my personal number is all. And I was trying to explain to people, and then I did that we had a statewide number, and then I look on my card and it wasn't there. So
I'm so sorry.
So just for future, I think that would be helpful, is to have both numbers, right? So they we can have our cell phone and then the state VOAD number on the
and
card.
I was also going to add that the lettering came out really small. I apologize. It didn't look like that on the screen when I was making them. So it's going to take some trial and error in different companies.
Wayne, do you think it's possible to put the QR code
on the back,
website on the back, just to create big old QR code with that?
Yep.
And is it any more expensive to put the VOAD orange on the back?
No.
Because I was thinking VOAD, the VOAD, and I've got the code for the color for that. If we put the orange.
If you wanted the entire back piece of the card to be orange, that would be more, but just putting the QR code would not, and I'll get the differences for you.
Okay, I would love to have the QR code on the back of the card. So my proposal is that anybody who wants cards, maybe we do 100 for each person to start with. Does that sound doable? And then just let Wayne know if you want some. And
100 would be around $16 per person.
Okay. So just let Wayne know if you want some printed up. And also, Carrie was going, Captain Rob offered to do our name tags. I still needed you to get all of our leadership team.
Yeah, I haven't gotten everybody's name, the spelling, and their title. I mean, I have it kind of here, but somebody was going to send me the list.
I was supposed to do that, so I will do that. And then Wayne was going to talk about our Zoom account, pro versus business.
Yeah, be real quick. The account we're using right now is actually for my school.
Oh, okay.
And it's a pro account. The only difference between pro and business is if you need licensees, which is a fee every month to have a licensee. And you also, with business, you get to put your organization's name in the front of the meeting. And the they'll do transcriptions of meetings, but that's about the only difference. And I don't see it being worth the extra $50 for us and what we do, because we'll never be over 300 participants. So I think the regular pro would be perfect for this. Just my
And
opinion.
that gives us up to 100 participants, the pro.
Right. I mean, it gives you up to 30 hours of, you can go for 30 hours in one call and unlimited calls. So, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we'll,
So is
hopefully we'll
everyone
never go
good
over
on,
30.
is everyone good on pro? Everyone who's in favor of going pro, say, to raise their hand. Anyone opposed?
The thing I would
Okay.
like to know is to make sure that we all have the ability to use it. I mean, if I schedule a meeting for our group, do I have to make sure none of you are using it at the same time, or can simultaneous meetings be going on?
That you can have up to 10 meetings going on at the same time, but that's where the licensee thing comes in. So we would just have to all have the same user ID and login information.
Is
But you
there?
can have up to 10
yeah.
going on at a time.
Is there,
Okay.
is there a code? Because my husband and I are doing Zoom meetings for church, and it's the church's account, but they gave us a code. So the guy who set it up, when we go in and put in the code, if you've got the code, you can go in and claim host. So then you can like make it so that everybody can share screen and whatnot.
Right.
Mhm.
And I can assign multiple hosts right now in here as well. So,
Nice, nice.
I
Yeah,
like that, because I think it's important that we all use the same VOAD account so that it starts becoming the familiar and the consistency.
yeah. If we can just have this executive team all be hosts, I think that would be fantastic. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Wayne. Carrie, Carrie was at the Utah League of Cities and Towns. She was down at the Utah One Summit. If
Lisa,
you want to report on those and
there was a request to jump to 6 really quick from Bill.
oh, say again.
Bill had asked if we could jump to 6 really quick. Just,
Oh, gotcha. I'm sorry. Yeah, Carrie, can we just jump to number 6? I'm sorry, Bill. Bill's got to go. Yeah, number 6 is state and region meetings. And Bill and I were talking the other day. Bill lost his Bill lost his team just like that. Red Cross seems to be missing in Utah. That's what happened with Region 3. I also had a chat with Rhonda yesterday, and I did have a chat with Trevor. I tried calling you, Carrie, but you were in St. George. So this is a proposal that Bill and I had talked about, and what he had done in Colorado is that we have our state meetings, we have our state VOAD, and that our regions become vice chairs. So that would be Bill, Rhonda, Trevor would all be vice chairs, region 1, 2, and 3, with a secretary. And you would meet as needed as your regions, or you can decide with your region, you can decide if you want to do it quarterly, or if you want to communicate by email, or how you want to do it. And then that way, Bill was kind of pointing out that it's kind of the same players that are all attending the state meeting. And then you've got your region meetings. And then we've got this leadership meeting for us, and it all just kind of,
The usual subjects.
yeah.
So basically you're saying that we would invite the whole entire state to attend virtually the state meeting, and then as regions, we would have meetings as needed, because some of the people are attending all
Correct.
meetings.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And then we'd have Bill report out for Region 1, Rhonda report out for Region 2, and Trevor report out for Region 3, and they become vice chairs instead of chairs. And then that way it's just a vice chair and a secretary. And then hopefully we still don't have any leadership in Region 4. So we're trying to get that. I was hoping Captain Rob would be on here. Maybe we could get Salvation Army, and I'm looking at David. I know there's Habitat down in St. George. So what are your thoughts on that? Making Region 1, 2, 3, 4 vice chairs with a secretary, and then those regions meet as needed, and then they don't hold their region meetings maybe quarterly. Thoughts on
We
that?
got to decide before we make business cards.
Yes, that's good point. Good point. Yes, good point. Good point. So we could say Vice Chair Bill, Vice Chair of Region 1, Rhonda, Vice Chair of Region 2, Trevor, Vice Chair of Region 3. So that's my proposal.
So
That
would we just, instead of having our local presentations, what, you know, in the ways that we have been doing, we would just have a presentation every time on the state level that everyone would join in, and it would be
Correct.
something that would be
correct.
meaningful to the entire state.
Correct. And so what we would do, I think, is put out, Sheila will send the invite out to the state, and then Bill, Rhonda, and Trevor can send it to your prospective regions if they'd like to come and join the state.
Well, I would say send it to the secretary. Too.
Right. Well, Rhonda doesn't have a secretary, or Bill. Bill kind of.
Then I'm it, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when we do have a secretary, yes, Sheila could send it to the secretary. For right now, we've just got Bill and Rhonda serving in the region 1 and 2.
And I guess we've been trying to send a newsletter out to our region. So I guess we could continue that with region specific news that is going on, but just direct everybody that we're having one statewide meeting every month. And that if they have an issue, though, they can still contact Trevor or myself for Region 3 specific needs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then one slight addition to what you proposed, Lisa, is by doing it that way, you've now got essentially 4 deputies. And if you can't be at the EOC by ESF 6 in an emergency because you're out of town or otherwise you're worried about your own place, then you've got 4 other people you can call on that have that delegated authority to go do that. So I think it provides strength at the top. And I looked at our mailing list, and it's all the usual suspects. You know, everybody is the same. And when we're on the calls or in the meetings, I'm calling on the same guy from United Way and the same person for Habitat for Humanity. And it'll cut the meeting times down and make it, I think, more valuable and less overhead.
Awesome. Thank you. So do I need to officially?
Yeah, I'll move the question.
Okay. Anyone second that?
Yes, though I'm just gonna put a caveat. I'm gonna go ahead and hold my Region 2 meeting this month because I've already lined up my presenter.
Sure. Yeah.
But I would also then present this information to everyone. I will probably send out like a poll or a survey to all of the folks on my email list. I have close to 200 people. Now my attendance is not that high as much as I want to. So I may actually ask a couple of questions. Do they want the invite to the state meeting? How do they want the invite? How do they want this information? Because I just think for me, I think it's just a good time to kind of clean up a little bit of the communication that has built up over the years to make sure that people aren't just getting emails and then deleting them. I mean, I'll be happy to clean up the list if they want me to, like, remove their name or do whatever, because it's easy to change out, like just have different distribution emails for everyone. So but yeah, I agree. I think quarterly meetings, I may actually put it out to my region, but quarterly meetings, I think Carrie, that's a great idea. If you already have a newsletter, keeping people involved and connected is also very valuable. So yes, I second it. So sorry, I'm also working my front desk, so I'm gonna mute myself real quick.
Thank you. Let's all vote on having our region's chairs become vice chairs with secretary, and sort of making it more of a state meeting where folks can attend. All those in any verbiage they would change on that, Bill?
Well, yeah, I should have said we do it by unanimous consent, which means you only ask for nay votes.
Okay, Sheila, did you have a comment? Okay, say that again. Vote by
my motion was to approve that proposal by unanimous consent. I think Rhonda seconded it. So now you just need to know if there's any dissenting votes.
Okay, any descending votes? Okay, seeing none, seeing none, we now have a new vice chair for Region 1, Bill, a new vice chair for Region 2, Rhonda, and a new vice chair for, well, you're not new, Trevor, you already were the vice chair for Region 3, and we will keep on working on Region 4. And Aaron Titus, I see, has joined us. Do you want to say hi?
Yeah, hi. So I just saw this appear on my calendar, so I didn't know why for sure, and so I don't want to crash the party or anything. If you don't need me, I can disappear, but I just saw it appear on my calendar.
We actually had Gina here from Missouri earlier.
Yeah, I had a conflict, and so I asked Gina to pop in. But again, like, don't mean to butt in or anything. I didn't know why I was invited.
Thank you for joining. I think you were probably invited because you were on our email from last time.
Okay.
So, but we always enjoy seeing your face.
Yeah. Well, I'll go ahead and hop off unless there's anything you need from me.
Anyone have any questions for Aaron on crisis cleanup?
How do you keep a quiet house with 10 kids? I don't get it.
Well, if you notice, I'm not at home.
No, I thought you were at home.
No, I'm at the office. I rent a co-working space to escape to a couple times a week.
Good.
Yes, school helps.
Nice. Well, thanks for checking in, Aaron. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, so we will go back to number 5, Carrie. Back to you, back to your Utah League of Cities and Towns and Rural 1 and the one-page messaging and how that's coming.
The one-page messaging I'll do first.
Since you've been home so much.
And that was something that Dan was going to work on with Trevor and I, and that never came to fruition. We had multiple meetings set up, and so I think Trevor and I will have to work on that another time. But so that's the easy one. The League of Cities and Towns meeting was interesting. I talked with quite a few mayors, especially those that were involved with flooding this year, and mostly I just listened to what they had to say, the concerns, the frustrations they have, whether it's from the state, the federal government, volunteers, just listening to that. They're overwhelmed in an incident, and they're not always sure what to do and how to, even if you have a plan in place, a disaster is a disaster. And so there's a time frame that makes you uncomfortable. And so not everyone in our state has had active disaster training or exercises, I guess I should say. One of the things that I thought that we might focus on, Trevor is going to be having something next week with the hospital, but the idea of maybe going in and talking with the county EMs and asking if we can participate in those exercises as VOAD. A lot of times volunteers are seen as get in the way. We need your help, but you get in the way. And so I think that it might be important for us to acknowledge that concern and yet at the same time say, can we be involved in your training so that we know our place and that we are here? It lends to that connectiveness that we've talked about for a long time. And so that's one thing that came out of the meeting. I did go to one disaster, I guess it was a forum or panel discussion, and it was out of Salt Lake Municipal District, and it was not helpful. I didn't find it helpful at all. And I brought up VOAD several times, and so did someone else in the audience. And, it's just, I don't know, it was a little frustrating that that's not in the plan at all on those who profess to be the experts in disaster don't really consider VOAD or voluntary organizations. They just have their their blinders on and this is it. And I think that's one of the frustrations of emergency management everywhere on the state level is those silos.
Can I ask who from Salt Lake was doing that presentation?
I'd have to look it up in my book. It was like 6 people. But
From Salt Lake City Emergency Management or?
no, municipal district, I think, but I have that all down. But so I was able to talk with quite a few people, just give them an oversight of what VOAD is. Most people I found have no clue to what VOAD is, and I think that's a messaging. That's really what our goal is, right? With the consistent number, with our meetings, with meeting with people doing, going around the state or whatever we're going to do in these next couple of years to make sure people understand who we are, what the services we might or may provide, and then building those relationships. Because really in a disaster, one mayor told me it's about trust. Who do you trust? And so they will trust somebody who's in their local community more than they'll trust a state organization. And so I think that although a lot of our services are centered on the Wasatch Front, we do go throughout the state. And so I think we need to really focus on building that trust. And that's why so many people reach out to ecclesiastical organizations separately, just because those are people in their neighborhoods. And although that's a great opportunity for service, it doesn't necessarily translate to organized volunteer efforts. And so there was frustrations on that with most of them on counting the hours and, oh, so-and-so stepped in and did something without the mayor even knowing, right? The mayor said, I was doing this, this, and this, and then all these people came and did something and I didn't even know. And a couple of the mayors felt frustrated with that. And it was nothing to do with VOAD. It was just volunteers showing up. And so again, and then so that was kind of the messages that went on at League. Then the One Utah Summit, which is the Rural Utah Summit, I had an opportunity to talk with quite a few state agencies. In fact, a lot of those come to the table there. And I had a long conversation with Jess Anderson of who's the Commissioner of Public Safety. And we're going to sit down and go over some other things that might be able to be top down, bottom up, kind of where are the gaps and what can we meet and what can we do. Some county commissioners who were kind of similar to the mayors, where we're not really sure, we just call up their ecclesiastical leaders and it's done. But I think there's opportunities for us to really strategically come in with some good resources and for them to understand and know who we are. I think it would be nice if we could maybe have a panel at the next League meeting in St. George in April, and then again ask maybe next. I don't know if it's appropriate for the Rural Business Summit, but it might be something that we could talk about, or with that's held in the fall, usually in conjunction at SUU, just to give people opportunities to hear the voice and understand. Again, I think after talking with a lot of people, handing out my card, it's really about trust.
I think you're spot on. And those relationships that are developed in blue skies.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's why I think it's really been great that we can have our Google Voice and we can have the business cards now. I think all of us are known throughout the state for different things. And now we just need to make those connections and solidify those connections. And maybe we start having a regular communication, whether it's each of us has whether we have a call list that we just make a connection with, a text or a call once a month, or if we go on and meet with people, if we have a newsletter, whatever it's going to be. I went to a communication a panel, and they said, right now, the only way to reach people is 7 times in 7 different ways. If you don't do that, it just goes out of their brain. It's nice to meet you, but and so I think we need to consider that in our communication. What 7 ways can we communicate with these people, and in 7 different ways?
Yeah.
7 times in 7 different ways.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And I neglected, Sheila. I should have. I wrote you. I penciled you in on number 7. I wanted to see if you had anything to add, or if you wanted to let everybody know about the Faith and Blue barbecue on Saturday at the Scientology.
Okay. So this is actually a national event that's being done that invites the police officers to come and join and express their opinions or what's happening in the area. And that roundtable starts, I think it's at noon on Saturday. And then we're having a barbecue out in the back of our building. And the whole entire neighborhood is invited and to come and help support the police departments and those who are active in protecting our communities and showing our appreciation to them. So everyone is invited to come. I can send you a reminder again. And it's the main purpose is to support the police departments and what they do for our communities. So
yeah, it's houses of worship and law enforcement. And Jess Anderson will actually be there on the panel. And I've got 1 to 3. Sheila is what.
You know what? I have not looked for the last couple of days.
That's okay.
That's
okay. And I did send it out to our regions, and I see that Carrie and Rhonda has sent it out to our reach. So everybody, all of our VOAD partners know about it if they want to come. And so I think we've come to the end. We've come to the end of the agenda. And Wayne, are you going to set up our October 14th meeting on the new Zoom or on Salvation Army at this point?
Yeah, I've stopped using the Salvation Army, but I'll either be using my school account that Weber State gave me, or we'll have our new one. Yeah.
So that will be the 14th, and we're shifting our time to 10 a.m.
October 14th at 10 a.m.
Yeah, Thursday, same day, second Thursday, but we're shifting it to 10 a.m. in the morning. And we are going to have it in person at Salvation Army, but we will also want to have that virtual component. And I talked to Captain Rob, and he said they should be able to do both.
So should this be in place of the meeting that we were planning in our regions, or should we still have our region meeting for October?
You can, Rhonda has already scheduled her October meeting, and she's going to go ahead. So I'll leave that to you, Carrie, and Trevor, whatever you guys want to do. If you have something already set up, or if you just want to group and talk with your region, I will leave that to you.
Yeah, seems like we should probably talk with our region to let them know of the change, rather than just all of a sudden they get this meeting invite to the state.
Yeah, that would be good. Just
okay. And then when will we have access to use the Zoom account, Wayne?
So we are we're basically trying to figure out how we're going to get the check to Zoom, and I'll talk to David more. But as soon as we pay for it, we'll get the access and we'll let everybody know. Yeah.
Do we not have a credit card?
No, we don't. We're paying through. Our account has checks, so we're trying to figure out how to do that. Yeah.
Stepping it up to the. I don't know.
David, what would it take for us for Utah VOAD to get a credit card? Is that too complicated?
Probably we need to go open an entirely new account. I'll be perfectly honest, the account that we have really is not the type of account we should have. It's been open for years. It was actually opened, we'll put it this way, when it cuts a check, it cuts it as if it was coming from my house, and my personal name and everything on the check. And I was like, the first time I saw that, threw me for a loop. But they said the way the account was set up, it was basically set up as if similar to what you would do a scout troop or something of that nature, where the leadership and which makes sense because the leadership changes, and there's no permanent address, there's no so.
Where do we get our mail?
Setting up a credit card because we don't have a permanent mailing address. We do not have the infrastructure that you would associate with that type of account.
So do we need to get a PO box so that we can have our own address and then have an account that would let us keep going forward, but be more up to date and be able to have electronic payments?
I think having a PO box is definitely beneficial. One of the problems we've run into in the past is that such reminders, such as renewals, have gone to a previous owner's or previous president's address, and then got lost because that person moved, they quit the organization. That I think we need to have some sort of permanent mailing. Right now, I've been using the Habitat address for everything, so that we at least have some sort of stability to it. Mainly because I've been in the position for 5 years. I've been the longest officer in the group, and so everything's been coming to here for stability. But if I end up moving on or something changes, where does it go, and who's making sure that those things get taken care of? And so I think we need to set up a PO box that is being monitored, and then whose responsibility is that to go to that regularly and check for any new mail.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be an important aspect. I mean, somebody's always going to live in the Salt Lake area that serves on this board. So I think it should be in Salt Lake. But
and should we get a PO box and then open a proper bank account and get a credit card, and then maybe have president, vice president, treasurer be the signers on the account or something like that?
Yeah, because I still think we need to be careful with the funds, and we don't want any. I don't know. I just have served on a lot of organizations that verifying that it's there, making sure financial statements are being shown. But we're in a new age where electronic payments. We want our partners to be able to pay electronically. We want them to be able to, I don't know. I just feel that it would be helpful.
Yeah, I think, and we're talking about a debit card, not a credit card, right, David?
Right.
Not a credit card.
I think we'd want a debit card.
Yeah, just
okay.
a card, just a card so
Great.
we can have electronic.
So what's the first step in setting up a PO? I've never done a PO mailing box.
You can do it online. I can easily do that. I'll just, we'll figure out the location. You can do it online. That's no problem. Well, David will probably have to help me because I have to pay for it.
The one thing we need to be careful of, sometimes a bank won't allow you to do just a PO box. There's got to be a street address associated to that for this kind of thing. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Well, I belong to an organization. We just have a PO box, and they're fine with it.
Okay, I think it depends upon your bank. So we just tried one for
I think
somebody else.
Zion's is the one that I'm with
Okay.
for an statewide organization, but check around and see which ones
Okay.
will allow it.
Like I said, we've been using Chase forever, but when we went in and did some paperwork with them a while back and realized that the account that we had set up was probably not the appropriate type of account. But at that point, I would need to get all the officers in there to close the account and reopen a new account. And we didn't go through the hassle. So we
Gotcha.
kept what we have.
Let's have a hassle and let's have lunch.
Yeah, right now, when I need to do payments, I can go log into the account and it'll cut. We don't have physical checks. It just cuts the check from the bank. We go on to online bill pay. Although Wayne, we did some kind of electronic payment to him. I don't know how it worked, but he said,
Yeah, it worked really well. It was an app and went straight into my account, but I don't know if, most places don't take them. But yeah, it was awesome. And I'll also give you an invoice for the last business cards I bought too. So I'll talk about that.
And then wasn't Team Rubicon was going to pay for some meeting you guys attended a couple months back, and we never did receive payment for that.
You didn't get a check from them? Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Let me get on them right now. I don't know why they wouldn't have. I'll get it right now.
Nice. And so Wayne, are you willing to take on getting us a PO?
Yeah, I'll just need data to, because we'll have to pay for the, you can pay
Okay.
for it annually or monthly or whatever. Yeah.
And what does that generally run annually?
It's less than $5 a month, I think. Let me
Okay.
check.
Awesome. And so for our October 14th meeting, originally I had slated Bob Toth with Team Rubicon, and he was going to talk about UEMA and Operation Slick Rock, but Bob is going to be at a wedding in Montana or Wyoming or somewhere.
Okay.
And so I called Jeff McCulkey to see if he could be backup, and he's going hunting.
Okay.
So I have sent Ted Alenko with Jehovah Witnesses Disaster Relief was going to present in November. I have sent him an email to see if he can switch and do our presentation for our October 14th meeting. And then I'll have Bob or Jeff do the UEMA / VOAD Operation Slick Rock presentation on November 11th.
Okay.
Team Rubicon is also having a meeting on the 18th for Operation Slick Rock. And
Right.
do you all remember what Operation Slick Rock was from last year that got canceled? Sheila, it was an event that was going to be held down in Moab. Team Rubicon was the lead. It was going to be for all the VOADs to go down, and it was going to be mitigation for the what are the trees called, Wayne, that are growing, the invasive trees that are growing down there, the tamarisks or so this was all going to happen, and then COVID happened and it got canceled, and Salvation Army was going to cook the food. Latter-day Saint Charities was going to donate the food. So Team Rubicon is having a meeting on the night of October 18th to sort of talk about it. So Jeff or Bob will have some more details that they can present to us in our November 11th state.
Yeah, I'll be in that meeting too. And
Oh, nice.
also, I was going to add, if you need me to talk to the doctor from Utah, Naloxone, and see if she's available on the 14th, I can do that as well.
Oh yeah, that was Jennifer Plum.
Yeah, she's amazing.
She is amazing.
Yeah. Do you want to ask her if she's like backup? I want to wait to hear from Ted.
Yeah, I'll wait till you hear from Ted. Then I just give her as much
and
notice.
ask her if she can't do it then maybe February. I think right now we had Aaron Titus scheduled for crisis cleanup January.
Okay.
So ask Dr. Plum if she can't back up for the 14th. If she can't do that, let's have her on the February meeting.
Okay. Yeah, and I just wanted to add to that if she gives us a class, everybody that wants it can get free doses of naloxone and a T-shirt.
Oh, that's great. That'd be awesome. Yeah, I think I got some from one of my conferences, and I think I keep it in my car.
Yeah, I've got several.
Yeah. That would be amazing. So would you let me know what you find out from her, and then I will. I don't. What do you think if I don't hear from Ted by because we've got to send out the agenda.
Yeah, I'd say if you don't hear from by Friday, then I'll call her directly, and then we can start panicking after that if you want.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
and that's what I figured. If Ted couldn't join us, I was just gonna have us all just sort of report to each other what is going on and what just sort of a catch-up meeting. So today's Thursday. Yeah. So I guess if I don't hear from Ted by tomorrow, I'll get the agenda all typed up, and yeah, if we don't hear from him, we'll have the agenda tapped up. Maybe I just do the agenda and just say the state meeting and just the presentation is to be announced.
Yep.
Maybe so we can get, because usually I know Sheila, you get that out Friday and then another second one next, Tuesday or Wednesday, right before the meeting. Maybe we'll do that just to be announced. And
Hey, that sounds good, because I'm ready to go with the Google event
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so we're good. I'm gonna do a test run tonight and then we'll
Nice, nice.
see
Are
how
there
it goes
any-
for tomorrow.
Yeah, are there any announcements or anything you want me to put on the agenda for state?
Just so that you know, I'm not going to be able to make it the meeting next week. I am traveling to Chicago to do some college tours with my daughter.
Oh,
I will be on a plane. So
do you have anything you want to report?
we're actually having Kevin McCulley actually do the presentation on our meeting on the 28th. So I was praying that he would say no next week, because that means the people who go to the state meeting will also see it in like 2 weeks later. So anyway, no, that's really all that I have is with that. I was going to have Kevin, I'll send you the email. Well, you'll get invited, so you'll know what I put out in my email. That's my only announcement for Region 2. And that we're still holding this meeting, and then we'll move to quarterly. So, well, we should probably wait until make sure my membership knows that we're moving to quarterly before we say, oh, surprise.
Gotcha.
Who's
So-
going to Coeur d'Alene?
Coeur d'Alene? No, I'm going to Chicago.
Oh, Chicago. Okay.
Yeah, Chicago. Yeah, so
Nice.
that'll be
Nice. fun.
my son went to school there, and now my daughter wants to go to school there. So, yeah,
fun.
we'll see. We'll see. You know, it's all a journey with.
Yeah, we lived in Evanston. We lived in Chicagoland a couple of years. Loved it. Cold winters, but we loved it.
Yeah, my son doesn't complain about it. I don't know. We'll see what. I don't know. But it's going to be nice to go see my son, and then also look at some schools and help my daughter in this journey of finding where she's going to land to go to college. So we'll
Nice.
see.
Nice.
It's
Awesome.
fun. So
all
right.
Awesome. And Trevor and Carrie, so are you guys going to have an October meeting, do you think, just to?
I'll let Trevor tell you what we kind of had originally planned.
Yeah, we're planning on, I'm working with Kelly Johnson to talk about, is it a city drill? Is that correct, Carrie?
Yeah, she had a city drill recently, and just talk about, what she did with that and how we might involve more partners. And then Trevor has one that's scheduled that day before, or that was it the same? No, you have one scheduled next week. And then so the two of them will talk about planning these exercises, and then how VOAD can maybe be a participant in those.
And remind me which city Kelly's with.
She's with
Linden.
Linden.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. So I think we'll do our state meeting. You guys will finish up your, so I don't think we'll like really make this announcement. Well, I'll let you guys do it on your regional level. So I don't think we'll really mention it here at the state level. But next month we can talk about it, and maybe put it in the agenda or the notes for next. But anyway, I think for this month, we'll let you guys go as regional areas. And so I think that's it. Good job, guys.